things to talk about. It is arguably, I'm going to go with the era of the woman. I was struggling with that last hour because last year was the second time we had a year of the woman. The first time was like in the 90s, I think. But last year was, or 2 years, I don't know. Let's just go with the era of the woman. And we are seeing a lot more women in the political arena, which I think is really interesting because the numbers haven't changed all that dramatically on the business side. But they are changing, I think, in a way far more dramatically on the political side. And I think there's a reason for that. I think it's also true, and it has been for some time, in the small business world. There are a lot of female small business owners, but there are a lot less female executives of big companies, statistically, right? And so I think there's a reason for that. I think it's because there is still a lot of gender bias, gender inequality, sexism, whatever you want to call it, in the workplace that women are able to avoid by going into their own business. If I start my own business and I'm the boss, come at me, bro. You know what I mean? And same thing with politics. I can run a campaign and being a woman can be an advantage because now, people want more women. They want to see that women vote, all of those things. And so now in that arena, being female can be an advantage. So, I just think it's interesting. I think it would be great to see this year to see some change on the business side as well, to see executives welcome more women into their ranks and boards welcome more women into their ranks. And that all has to be done very intentionally. I was asked over the last several weeks to do a keynote on breaking through the glass ceiling. And it got me thinking about whether or not there is a glass ceiling and what's wrong with that analogy. We've been hearing that term for a long time. I should have, but I didn't research the origin of that term. I don't know who came up with that or when that term was coined. But I think it no longer serves us. And here's why. The idea of a glass ceiling, it's very visual imagery, right? We can all picture it. A man is climbing the ladder, up he goes, a woman's climbing the ladder, and then bam, she bumps her head on something. Oh, she looks up, it's a glass ceiling, and above her, the men continue on. But the problem, I think, with the analogy is that there's an implication that if one woman breaks through that purported glass ceiling, that then there will be a hole through which the rest of us can climb. And that is not proven to be true because we have seen a woman rise up. I mean, how many years ago now is it that Geraldine Ferraro ran for vice president of the country? I mean, it was a long time ago. And we, really didn't see another woman at that level for many, many years. And we still don't see it nearly as frequently as the men. And so certainly there wasn't a mad rush, right? And that is true in corporate America as well. I mean, we see, females that are rising to the level of CEO at, PepsiCo, Yahoo had Marissa Mayer. We see Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook, who I think is on her way out, whatever. And so we certainly see women who have reached the highest rungs. We see some female entrepreneurs that are doing amazingly well. But that has not opened the floodgates for everyone else. And it has not changed the culture dramatically. And it has not changed the nature of big business and executive suites and boardrooms and all of that. And so I think the analogy, it's time to put that one to bed because I almost think it's like you know what they say, it's not like being stabbed, it's death of 1,000 cuts, death by 1,000 cuts, right? And I think this is a similar thing. It's not a glass ceiling. It's like 1,000 grains of sand in your shoes and in your hair and in your eye. And you don't notice because after a while you get used to that feeling of the piece of sand in your shoe. You're like, oh, whatever. There's some grit in my shoe. It is what it is. Oh, there's some sand in my eye. Whatever. I'll blink a few times and move on with my life. And that I think is more of an analogy that works because what is happening to women is that it's not, there's no one standing there blocking the door. There's no one saying you can't have this job as CEO or you cannot have this board seat. No, here's the glass ceiling. You must stop there. It's not like that. It's subtle, just like sand in your shoe or your eye or your clothes. It's like coming back from the beach. You know how you can never get rid of the sand? It's like that. And I think we just become accustomed to it. And that, I think, is what needs to change. And so, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine over the weekend or the last couple of days about this. And she said to me, well, I never really experienced sexual harassment or, gender inequality in my career. I did really well. I climbed really high and I never experienced that. And I said, but you did. You just don't realize it because it was sand in your shoe. You dealt with it. You climbed anyway, even though you had sand in your shoe. But you were disadvantaged and you didn't even realize it. And that is hard to quantify for people. But unless you know what everybody makes from a salary perspective, first of all, and you don't know. And also, people aren't necessarily, the best bosses, male and female, aren't necessarily saying, hey, I'm not promoting Dana because she's a woman. They're not saying that. They're just saying, oh, Joe seems more confident in that interview, so I'm going to go ahead and promote Joe. Dana can wait. She's not really all the way there yet. And we know now from many a study that women don't speak up with that level of confidence unless they have 100% of the qualifications needed, whereas a man will say he's ready with 60% of those qualifications. So that is sand in your shoe. And you don't even realize it because you're like, well, I wasn't ready. When I was ready, I finally got the chance. And then people will say, well, you just need to be more confident to women. But you can't change, the dynamic of an entire gender by writing an article about being more confident. There has to be a societal change where we recognize that and we hire somebody or promote somebody based on their actual brain and their skills and their ability to do a job that we are judging, not based solely on what they are saying. So there's a lot of systemic changes, I think, that could recognize, the grains of sand that are gender inequality versus that glass ceiling. So I'm officially retiring that for 2019. I think that's over. No more glass ceiling. Doesn't mean the problem is solved. It means we need a new way to identify with the problem, a new way to